Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the collection of the grim, the abominable, and the macabre. This is the Dark R podcast, and I'm your host, KDG, bearer of grudges, keeper of secrets. Before we start, I'd like to point out that this podcast is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to any existing person, living or dead, is purely coincidental. The aim of this podcast is to entertain and nothing else. Have you ever watched a horror movie and found a character who seems to know what's happening? The resident nerd who reads about folklore and tells the main characters what they need to do? Well, over the years, people around me have constantly told me that I was that guy. Fortunately, we don't live in a horror movie, but all the same, I'd like to help my listeners out just in case they do manage to encounter the unexplained. For tonight's episode, we'll continue our story by following the rest of the investigation team with Kathy and Riz. Last time, we talked about the other three and the grim fate that they were dealt. Could their friends suffer the same fate? Or can they find a way to escape from the Ashencrest Institute? Sit back and relax as we dive back into the asylum and what lies within. This is the Asylum Part 2. "9:21 p.m. Kathy was pretty tough for her age. She wanted them to understand that. So when the chance came along to investigate Ashencrest, she wanted to take on the most active place, alone. The operating room was said to be the most active out of everything. It's situated at the back of the building, the furthest away from the group. Rumor has it that to this day, the spirits there tend to be a little bit more violent than in any other place. Now, 3 hours in, the search for these so-called malevolent ghosts seemed to be just that, rumors. She's been trying to catch EVPs, checking out every corner of the room, but it was all in vain. All this she did only with her flashlight as her guide. As she grew tired of snooping around for activity, she decided to sit down on one of the operating tables. Clearly, she didn't want to get out of the asylum without any proof. Suddenly, she heard a scream downstairs. Looking out the window, she saw that Matt repositioned the car while she was inside. It now faced the building, and you can see it clearly under the moonlight. Everything looked fine, thinking maybe Matt was trying to scare Dan again. She then wondered what to do with him when they all come back a few hours from now. When she turned around to face the operating room, the room actually had lights on. As she came closer to one of the operating tables, she saw that, apparently, the operating lamp was on. She was kind of excited as she went near the lamp, positive that this was a ghostly phenomenon. But just before she could reach it, the lamp went dead again. No way was she going to let an entity get away from her without any evidence. Furious, she threw the flashlight against the wall. "There! Now I don't have any lights. Come on out if you can." Her shout echoed in the room. Silence greeted her. Defeated, she aimlessly walked towards the spot where she thought she'd pick up the pieces of her broken flashlight. She was positive that it hit the wall near her, but then the room lit up again. Looking back, she saw that the lamp was on, but this time it was flickering. Each time it flickered, it stayed on for a few seconds. She was surprised, but regained her composure. She calmly approached the lamp, checking to see who or what turned it on. She found the switch near the door and looked as if someone was flipping it on and off, making the lamp flicker. She turned the lamp back on, and as the light washed over the room, A body was lying on top of the table, its chest still open from what seems to be an operation gone wrong. Blood everywhere, she couldn't understand what she was seeing. The body's eyes were wide open, but upon inspection, she realized that it looked like someone cut off its eyelids. Before she could say anything, the body's eyes shifted to meet hers. Its mouth opened and a gasp came out. Slowly, it started forming words as if to talk. "Please, turn off the light. It's much too bright in here," the body said, right before Kathy could hear one last click of the light switch before plunging the entire room into darkness. "10:23 p.m. Riz was pretty laid back, being the skeptic of the group. She was just absent-mindedly taking pictures of locations of the third floor. She kept hearing everyone scaring each other inside the building, making it feel like the ghost hunt was a complete joke. Matt kept screaming and making noises with the car. Jeff was pretty silent, so bless him. Dan was the serious type, but she had heard him shouting at Matt from the outside. Even a few minutes ago, she heard Kathy challenging ghosts. She didn't mind that, but it was still pretty disrespectful to say the least. As for Riz, she was pretty calm. She probably had hundreds of pictures in the 4 hours that she's been doing this. Wanting to turn in, she checked all of her shots one by one. She didn't really review them as she was taking the pictures. She didn't want to look until it was finished. Everything looked pretty normal. No orbs, no shadows, no nothing. Typical, she thought. She wanted to go back to the car and cool off inside it. She desperately needed the shower for all her work in this trip. Or a mirror, at least. She decided to check what she looked like. She owed herself that much. For lack of a better reflective surface, she decided to take a picture of herself instead. She checked to see, and she looked fine despite having a bit of dust over her clothes. It must have been when she was laying beside the wall while she was taking pictures. She decided to open a window to let a little air in. Leaving her camera on the nearby table, she opened a few windows and checked on the car. She saw that Matt repositioned the car, probably out of boredom. She tried calling out to him, but silence greeted her back. Shrugging, she went back to the table, only to discover that the camera wasn't there. She looked around with her flashlight, but the camera wasn't anywhere in the room. She was positive that she put it there on the table. Feeling a bit nervous, she started thinking where it might be. But before she could think of any logical explanation, a flash of light almost blinded her. Before her eyes could adjust, another flash blinded her. She realized that it was her camera flashing her. She was relieved, thinking Jeff was playing a trick on her. He was the closest to her after all. "Alright, Jeff, you've had your fun. Now, stop being a jerk and give me the camera," she said playfully. Another flash greeted her from the darkness, and this time, she was getting tired of it. She desperately grabbed for the camera, fumbling around as her eyes adjusted from the flash. When she finally reached for a camera, her eyes had finally adjusted. She took out her flashlight and looked for Jeff, or anyone who could have played a trick on her. Looking around, she realized she was all alone in the room. Come to think of it, she realized that she didn't even hear any footsteps when she was blinded by the flash. She reviewed the 3 pictures that was the source of the flash that blinded her, but before she could focus on any of the images, she heard someone whisper right next to her saying, "There, how would you like it if we took your picture?" Riz froze. She looked for where the voice may have come from. She could feel a very strong chill run down her spine. "Who are you?" Riss called out nervously. "Silly girl," the voice shot back. "The name's on the gate," the voice echoed throughout the third floor. "Welcome to my home." "11:32 p.m. He pulled over just outside the gates. He studied the surrounding area for any signs of life. An open gate, a car with the headlights on, a couple of trees, and of course, the huge structure in the middle of it all. A few minutes into midnight, the headlights of the car parked outside made the structure all the more ominous. Sighing to himself, he got out of his car and walked towards the structure. He took out his pack and, lighting a cigarette, he stopped to stare at Ashencrest Institute. "Now then, let's see if I can get my members back," said the host to himself. That was part 2 of the Asylum. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We're currently at the climax of the story as it builds up to our ending next week. I hope you can all join me in wrapping up the investigation team and the host's story. If you like content like this and you want to see more, you can check out the previous episodes of the Dark R podcast on my channel. I made a playlist for it to make it easy for everyone. You can also listen to the Dark R podcast on Spotify and all other podcast playing services. Also, Spotify has started putting in ratings for podcasts recently, so I would highly appreciate it if you guys give us a rating. I hope you guys are staying safe out there. Again, this has been the Dark R podcast, and I am your host, KDG, saying good fright and good night. Happy holidays, everyone.